one.
Perfect. Beautiful. Hello and welcome to That Beautiful Life podcast. This is episode 152 of That Beautiful Life podcast. My name, of course, is Caduce Campbell, sitting here in the beautiful United Kingdom in Reading, in the town of Reading, which is foggy as hell, Roger. And of course, yes, as per usual, I'm talking to the beautiful Roger Bergstrom all the way in Stockholm, Sweden. Rog, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm fine. You shouted out my name right out there in the mist. so the mist queen might be looking for you now. Be aware.
Is that an actual thing? Is that a thing?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
You will just hear her breath behind you and then it's over.
Okay.
Careful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keeping that in mind. Did not know that was such a thing. Beautiful.
It is. Yeah. It's funny though that you mentioned mist, because yesterday I was driving around, and getting to that in a second, helping out a friend a bit.
Yeah.
With our car, and there are areas, where it was mist. It was like, because it's still, okay, now it's a bit colder here. I think we have 2 degrees to get today, but it's been around 0.
Yeah.
But even before that, as we were speaking in former episodes, it's been quite warm for the season, November and late November. So I think that's the reason why the ground has still been quite warm, and even some of the lakes and stuff like that. So I think that's the clash, and that's why the mist is, It looks it looks pretty cool though when you have that kind of blanket almost. It's,
But beware of the mist queen.
A blanket of cold. It has gotten proper cold. Like here, it's actually now it's like 1 degree Celsius outside. And we're getting like minus. Like last night, it was like -1 degree at one point in time as well. So it's gotten proper cold right now here.
Shit.
In the house, it's fine. Like the house temperature is fine. Like, we've been having to turn on the heating a bit more than I would like, because obviously the cost of heating has gone up, so.
Yes.
Preferably, I would like to keep it down and not actually keep the heating on all the time. But unfortunately, I can't have sick kids in the house, and sick me and sick missus and sick everyone. So for that reason, I've had to actually turn on the heating and leave it on, which is a thing. So that's
if possible, you can maybe have it just a bit lower, especially in some of the rooms. I mean, bedrooms, maybe it's good to not have too warm when you sleep in, things like that.
I actually don't know how to do that. Like with regards to
it's not possible in the house. It depends on the heating system and everything. How individual, like if you have these, what's that called in English?
The thermostats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I've actually found out that there are these smart thermostats you can buy for each room. Radiators, caps. I think that's what they call the radiators. And you can actually, if you install them and everything like that, you can monitor it from your smart home thing, and you can specify which room gets heat and how long and all that kind of stuff. So, for example, a lot of the time when we turn on the heating, for example, no one's in the living room or in the dining room or in the kitchen or in the bathroom, and I would prefer those rooms have no heat while the heating comes on, so that way we're not heating all of those rooms. We're just heating the rooms that need the heat, which is like, for example, our bedrooms, the office, and the boys' rooms, and that's perfect. Unfortunately, we don't have one of those smart heaters.
No. I understand. I mean, we haven't either, but we have individual in every room, so we tend to turn that down a bit if it's a room we're not so much into, or especially if it's again the bedroom. I would say, I think Adam now, when he comes back into his old home, he feels that it's a bit cold. He's not really used to that. We are not pushing the temperature. That doesn't really have so much to do with the increased price, even though it's a thing. But what we do when it comes to the increased cost of electricity and the energy and everything is that we tend to put, like, if we do the laundry, for example, on the weekend, and using the dish the machine to clean the plates and everything. We do that also mostly on the weekends because it's cheaper on the weekends, actually.
Is it?
Yes. You might check that out too, how it is in your area. I don't know, but I know it's here. That's the case here. And fortunately, we actually we saw on the last bill that it has gone down a bit. There has
Really?
been something done with the price. Just a bit. Yes, just a bit. I mean, it's still over what it was before. But at least that's something. It's something, a little something, you know.
A little solace to sort of like,
Yeah.
soften the blow. But I think that may be a Europe thing. Here in the UK, because we're no longer a part of the EU.
That little part. Yeah. I
Yeah,
forgot.
that whole nonsense
Brexit,
thing. Yeah, I call it crapsit. I call it crapsit because it's a load of crap, and it's literally hasn't improved anything. The whole sort of xenophobic sort of like, oh well, we'll leave and everything's gonna be perfect. That's nonsense, and it just made it worse in the end. So yeah.
I think a lot of people in the UK would agree with you. I would say.
Yeah. A lot of
I think so, at least from the.
A lot of people do, because sometimes I speak to people and they tell me what their opinions are on how things have changed prior to. Some people say they regret their decision when they voted. Some people say I think for some people it was the decision was so important to them in the sense of like, even for some people, it's like, even if you make the wrong choice about something and it's bad, you're so invested in that choice that even though you know it's wrong, you'll still say, but I feel like I made the right choice, So
you mean like the vaccinations?
Exactly.
I had to say it. I'm sorry.
I will be very honest with you. Literally, everyone I know who has been vaccinated has picked up COVID multiple times since being vaccinated, and most of the people I know who have not been vaccinated have not gotten it. Like literally, haven't once gotten it.
Same.
So, like for example, even like my missus, we live in the same house. Right, we go to pretty much the same places, because she works from home, I work from home. We barely go anywhere, right? And when we go somewhere, we're usually together. It is super rare that we're not together when we go places, right? And to be frank, that being said, I am the one who's out of the house more than she is. Like I go more places than she goes to, and yet she's picked it up, and I haven't. And she's vaccinated and I'm not. So that is another thing whereby it's like, that's, even just this week I was talking to Tim and he's got it. And I was like, wow, like, so I don't know what the science is behind that, but yeah, it seems like, and not just that, but she's been doubled, tripled, all that whole vaccination thing, gone through the whole process of it all. And she's picked it up multiple times. And it's just sort of like, it's sort of a thing whereby this is not seem to be doing what it's supposed to be doing, or at least it's not doing a good enough job of it. Essentially,
that's basically it. To be honest, I think most people can agree upon that now. Time after, even though they're still pushing out like articles and stuff like that. So the other day, just scrolling through the phone, and why do I get this? But it was like, they have like research shows now that.
It does nothing.
You are less likely to get, like, I think it was post-COVID or something, with the vaccination, like 35 to 60% better off. Like 35 to 60%. Like what kind of? Why not 25 to 50 or 50 to 95? You know what I mean? It's like
it's about having better odds because
but then my question is immediately. So how is the odds if you have natural immunity? That's my question.
Yeah,
I would like to know: is it 80 to 95? Maybe? just wondering. Wondering.
You gotta offer it up. You gotta offer up the odds and see what works and what doesn't work and so forth. And I think like for me recently, like talking to my brother about it, he was telling me about, his missus got it. She got they were both. He said the way he put it is like he said we ate the like what's that saying that people use, like you eat the pudding or whatever have you. They basically they went hook, line, and sinker for everything that came out with regards to it. They were those who were like telling people like, oh, you should get it, and if avoiding people who didn't and all that. They were very vigilant about it basically, and they were very trusting and went through the whole process. His wife now has a blood clotting thing that she didn't have before having it, and so for him it's like, oh, like I didn't she didn't have this before. She was perfectly fine. and she got it. And then she has this thing that she now has to live with for the rest of her life, apparently, where she's taking these medication. So he was like, because we were having a conversation. We were playing a match of eFootball. You know, we play eFootball, and we're just playing a match of eFootball, and we're just chatting, and he's just catching me up. He went on vacation, and he's telling me about this guy he was chatting with, and this guy was so staunch about certain perspectives and views, and he was just talking about how your opinion can change about certain things, and he used that as the example. And I'm basically going over the details of that, and it was just sort of like eye-opening. It was just like, wow, like look at that sort of thing. So yeah, it is a hell of a thing.
It's a hell of a thing. I'm not sure how long time we'll spend in this topic, but it's kind of interesting, especially now, like time after post and everything. But I mean, it's still out there definitely, but it's, like in the bigger sphere or the perspective of it, it has of course declined. However, I don't know. I've been reading some articles. It was a friend of mine who sent an article. It had to do with a bit what you just said. That there's been a lot of people that are having those kind of problems now, and it's like a bit of an increase, if we put it like that. And it's hard not to start to think that it might be related in their cases, at least, due to the vaccine. But I mean, it's hard to prove. It's hard to relate, especially since it takes time. It's not happening like 2 weeks after, or maybe even 3 months. It could be half a year or a year after, or even more sometimes.
And it doesn't even matter.
Of course, we got to be careful, like speculation and everything. I am the first one to say that. But on the other hand, as I said, reading this and also see the statistics and how it was before, pre-vaccine or COVID, then you start to wonder, because it looks very suspicious, if I put it like that.
It does have a very sauce connotation to it, and I think the thing too as well is that we can't speculate too much and say a lot of things, but these companies made sure to cover their asses before this sort of thing happened. Like they legally covered their butts. They were like, look, anything happens to you after this, we ain't responsible for crap.
No,
and then
I think the government's, if I might be wrong here, but I think they are signing some kind of agreement, I think, when they're buying.
They do
things like that. So I guess so that means that it's the every single country that has to have their own like laws and everything. I think I mentioned during COVID that they had these kind of discussions also here in Sweden. What's going to happen with, like, maybe if you get ill from taking the vaccine, things like that. It was those kind of, I don't know how that went. I do know that, for example, in Thailand, that I saw an article that they paid out like 35 million whatever baht, or the currency there, to people that had got ill.
Really? Yes. Wow. Did the government do it?
The government.
Which is so nonsense, because when you think about it, the government paying that out, who do you think pays the government? It's the same people, taxpayers' dollars. So at the end of the day, the people are paying themselves at the end of the day. Your taxes are going to go up at the end of the day. So
I don't know what to say. It's just moving money around. That's what it is. That's what a budget usually is also. You move money around. And at the end of the day,
it's so
like
silly.
Yeah. But it is silly.
It's
a lot
so
of
silly
into this, but it's it's the multi in companies that are to a certain degree ruling the world in a way. True. It is. It becomes more and more clear in many people's eyes.
Yeah, totally, definitely. It is a hell of a thing. But that being said, it's just been a week, really, busy week. I've been exhausted, and I
can imagine. You told me a bit before we started to record, but you want to talk about it?
Well, we've just had a lot of stuff going on, family wise. We've just had stuff going on with the kids at school. I'm not going to go into full details, but so we've just had stuff like that. I think with my oldest, he came in on, I think, was it a Friday before, like last Friday, I think. He comes in and he's crying. And I'm like, what's going on? Because I called him first and he answered the phone crying, and I'm like, where are you? And he said, I'm on my way home. I'm not too far. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you when you get home. And then he gets in. He tells me this kid who's been picking on him for a while now attacked him on the way home from school.
Oh no! come on.
And I had to get up, and I got fed up because, we've been talking to the school and trying to sort this out, trying to, make this thing, like, work this whole thing out, and it hasn't happened. It hasn't worked out. And so in the end, I just said, you know what, I'm going to find this kid's house and have a word with their parents, because this is not being solved. And so I did. I grabbed him up. I was like, let's go. And I went and found the house, and I went knocking. I went knocking from door to door, mate. Like, I found out which area the kid lived in, and I went from door to door, and I found the house, And once I found the house, I spoke to the family and got a whole gist of what was going on, and we had some back and forth. And there's some progress with regards to that, but let's just put it this way: police have been involved, and so it is.
The police?
Yes, the police have gotten involved. Because this kid has been doing it quite a lot. And I think at the age of 14 they can be prosecuted at that age I think so. It's like, so no, preferably I would have preferred for it not to get to that far, but after speaking to the family and all that kind of stuff, I just come to the conclusion, okay, this has to be the route that needs to be taken, especially because of the fact,
which leads me to conclusion that they didn't really listen to you all the way, or
no, the family was fine. It was like they literally just didn't have any like, for them they were struggling with the kid as well. So it was like he's got his own personal trauma where he is struggling with. And that personal trauma, he's lashing out at other kids and other people around him, essentially. Long story short, the kid found his dad dead on the floor some years ago, and that trauma has somehow affected him in a negative way. I mean, granted, he's a kid. He's like 14, so it's understandable. But that being said, his family have tried like everything they can, from therapy to whatever, to try to get through to him, and nothing has worked. So they're hoping that from after speaking to them, the hope was that with the whole police getting involved and stuff like that then the social services or whatever could afford him more help, or more resources to help.
More resources.
Exactly. Because for them, it's like they've exhausted themselves trying to help him, and nothing has worked. And they've tried reaching out to social services and all these sort of bodies, and they haven't helped. So they were like, well, if the police gets involved, hopefully that forces these services to do something and help this kid. So at the end of it all, that's the route that was taken. And
well done. I'm gonna give that to you. I think you did a really good thing. No, really,
it's stressful, mate.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. I'm getting to that. But I was just saying, it's really well done, because it takes some to actually. You can think about it. You can think it, but actually to go there and start to knock those doors and confront and starts to explain and talk. I mean, you're good at conversation and the social aspect. So I think that's going to be fine either way. But even so, that's great, because at the end of the day, as you describe it also here, you're helping this guy or this family. Hopefully they get as said, the resources and the extra help to turn the tide and help this guy. I mean, he's 14 now. It has to be done as much as possible now, so it doesn't get worse, or he continue to kind of grows up having these issues. So that was the Thursday medallion goes to Kudus Campbell today, and we're proud of that. No, really. But I can understand, and that's what I wanted to get to, since you said stressful, because I know it's a bit more to that also with your week and everything overall. And it's everything that has to do, especially if you have kids. It's hard to describe if you don't, but if you have, as I do, I mean, when something happens bad, it can be almost anything. You really feel it in your guts, and it's really inside of you, because it's so important, it's and it can become very as you say, stressful for your mind and your thoughts and feelings. So I definitely feel you. I can understand, and I hope you guys and I mean all of you, the family is gonna find some resting pauses now and some better time, especially into next week and from there on, with these kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about it to a certain extent, it's like I know when I was a kid, and this is what I said to the family when I spoke to them. I said, when I was a kid, I got up to nonsense. Kids will be kids. Especially boys. You get up to nonsense. But for the most part, you grow out of it. Especially in like previous years, you would grow out of stuff. Like a lot of kids you would probably get into fight with or arguments with or whatever have you would probably become your friends years down the line because of the fact that back then you would work through those sort of things. And I remember I was listening to a podcast recently, which I'm going to shout out at the end, that had Hassan Minaj on it. And he was talking about how, this whole social media and all that kind of stuff that this ecosystem that we're in right now has sort of taken away the sort of confrontation that humans have, where we can say whatever we want online, as giant wiener 25 or whatever have you, and there's an anonymity that comes from that, where you can say what you want and feel safe in saying what you want. But
exactly.
in real life, you would say something and there would be a repercussion to it. So let's say, for example, you and I are hanging out on a basketball court or something, or on a football field, and I said something to you. You could physically or otherwise confront me.
Yes,
and that direct confrontation would lead to a solution. It would lead to a conclusion of that situation. Whether or not we got into a confrontation and we're both kicked out of the football field and we're never allowed back, or whether or not you're kicked out and never allowed back, or I'm kicked out and never allowed back, or essentially we end up, squashing the whole thing and come into an understanding of each other. At the end of the day, there is a conclusion, a finite conclusion that comes from something like that you don't get online. I'm not saying all in-person physical situations are solved in that way, but most are and can be, and especially because of the fact that people know who. Like someone knows who you are when we're hanging out in a real life setting. It's less likely people will do and say things like they would online, because they know that. So true. Because that this person knows, they probably know where I live or whatever have you. They can come to my house, like a kid would say and do things, but keeping in mind, oh, my mom could find out and I can get in trouble. Like that's a simple explanation, a simple example, essentially. Like, kids would do and say things, but as soon as you start involving their parents, then they're like, okay, I don't want my mom involved. Sorry, let's squash this, and I can just use this as an example. This actually happened with my son. So like, a girl was messaging him online on his phone, and she was very rude to him on the phone, cursing him out and saying all these derogatory things to him. And then once I noticed the messages, because I had taken his phone, he had gotten in trouble. I had taken his phone, it was on my desk. And I just glanced down and this phone just kept going off and off and off. Eventually I was like, because I don't check his phone, but eventually I was like, why the hell is this phone going off so much? I picked the phone up to look at it. And and I start seeing the messages that pop up on the screen, and they're rude messages. So I call him into the room and I'm like, who is this person and why are they messaging you like this? And then with him there, I went through the messages. And at that point in time, I responded to the message and said, hey, this is his dad. And, we don't appreciate the way that you're speaking to our son. If you're going to speak to him, speak properly, right? Don't be disrespectful. And this girl was rude, right? And then she continued going on and on and on. But what she did was she changed her profile picture on her account to something else. And then continued with her name changed and everything, continued being rude.
Oh, wow. A troll. Yeah.
At that point, I showed the phone to my missus, and my missus was like, she straight up just sent a message like, hey, we know who you are. And she put the girl's name in there because my son knew who the girl was. She put the name in there, and we will contact the school and let them know about this. And she said something rude at first. And then she paused for a second, thought about it, and responded, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, please don't contact the school. All right.
Too late.
So it was that sort of thing whereby there was a real world consequence to that kind of behavior. And she then had to check herself and adjust her behavior accordingly. And that's the thing that you don't really find a lot online. So, yeah.
True. I remember you mentioning this. It's, oh my God. Yeah, that's a good example of what you just described.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Wonderful example.
Real life consequences. Mm-hmm.
That being said, I have not been playing anything this week because of all of that, or watching anything proper because of all that. I've just been focused on family stuff. So, Raj, guide us in the light of stuff that you've been watching and playing. Fill us in.
yeah. Definitely, I will. Just before that, I just want to say that I've had a pretty normal week, good week. It's been quite busy. I have been doing the yearly inspection of the car that went through. Check. That was yesterday. That's why we're recording today. And I helped out a friend. Actually, it's the bass player in the band. He had some speakers in another rehearsal place in Stockholm. So we took the car and went there. But the same morning as I also was, going to the place for the inspection of the car, it was around 0. And I mean, we have the winter tires on now. Eventually, we got that was the story I told you last time. It was pretty slippery. It was quite. I felt I went into the roundabout, and I just felt, you lose the grip a bit, even though you have the right tires. Because I saw there was this like surface on the asphalt and the road, so it was pretty. Yeah, it was
slippery.
dangerous. Yeah, you got to be careful. But we fixed that, so I'm good with that. And but besides that, I have been watching a series that I wanted to share with you, and maybe this can be something fun for you guys to watch as well. And I'm thinking about you, Q, and
I've heard about this series already. Like a lot of, you're not the first person to recommend this to me. Like,
I am not. Okay.
So far, 3 people so far this week have recommended it. But go on.
Then it's the truth. It's the truth. We're talking about a series on Netflix called Wednesday, and it's literally, if you know about the Addams Family, that's the one. The original was already back in 1964, and since I was born at the end of the 60s, I remember I was a kid when I first saw this black and white series. Brilliant concept with the characters and everything. And later on, there was movies being made, I think it was 91, and it was also Netflix in 2019. It was an animated movie that I haven't heard. I've heard that it wasn't that amazing, but even so, now they have released a new series that is called Wednesday, because Wednesday is the name of the daughter in the Addams Family. And it was also good to see that her mother, Morticia, I think the name is in the series, is played by Catherine Zeta-Jones. I don't see her that often nowadays, being married with Michael Douglas in real life. So good actors, and of course Tim Burton, the genius, is behind this, and you can see that you can recognize his way of working with light and everything, and the kind of color scheme, everything. It's great. She's going to school. She's a student, and she attempts to master her emerging physical ability because she has something from her mother, right? And solve also a mystery that embroil her parents. So there's things that in the school where they went to, where all these students have different kind of backgrounds and also abilities. There are werewolves and everything. It's like, this is great entertainment. It has an 8.5 on IMDb, and I really, really liked it. Me and Isaac binge watched this series. Yeah, it was down my alley, because it's also her personality. If you know the Addams Family, she's dark. She's really like, oh, I think that's amazing. Listen what she says about social media and TikTok. Oh yeah, listen to what she says about TikTok. Oh my god.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not gonna spoil, but it's so I love it.
I'm pretty sure we will be talking about this again soon, because
there is an actress. I just want to say this. Maybe if you know the movie from, that has to be, wasn't that 91? The actress that played Wednesday, her name is Christina Ricci, quite well known. She's actually in this series as well. I won't say who she is, but she's there as well, which I find quite interesting. Wednesday meeting Wednesday kind of thing. So good stuff. Jenna Ortega as Wednesday is also really good. She's a cute girl, and she's really she's not smiling much, if I put it like that, which is a Wednesday thing. But yeah, recommended. Check it out. When it comes to gaming, I just briefly wanted to say that I just found out a thing. It's kind of interesting when you have a feature in a game, and I'm referring to me still been playing Modern Warfare 2, and also been playing on stream together with some other guys, some Warzone and the DMZ game mode I talked about, which is like a version of Warzone with also AIs. What they've done now when it comes to a bit of depth of the weapons is they have this weapon tuning. So if you level up a weapon to max level, there's tuning possibilities of like the stock of the gun or the scope and things like that. So you can maybe get some faster aim down sight speed or stability. I find this quite interesting because you can tweak it even more to your liking. It might be the gun that you want to use, but you can, as said, make it even more your own, so to speak. However, the system is this. It's two sliders, one horizontal and one the other way. And then you have this like octagon or septagon in the middle over a circle. So if you pull the slider, apparently it increases on one side and decreases on the other. So there's always a payoff. If I get more aim down sight, I lose, for example, meaning handling, I lose stability. But everyone thinks that, if I pull it all the way to the right, for example, that's 100% and that's max. But the thing is, the sliders aren't linear, and people haven't really found that out. So if you pull it, let's say 75%, and everything after that just means that you're not increasing, let's say, the handling, but you are decreasing the other side. So you're pulling it too far, losing what you didn't have to lose. So you got to be very careful with that if you're weapon tuning, that you're looking at this circle and what's happening with this septagon moving when you're pulling the sliders. I found that quite interesting. It's pretty sneaky because I've seen so many YouTubers. Well, and then I have this on my class and I pull this all the way here, and I'm like, well, that's not the way to do it, to be honest. Which I was fooled to as well. I just came across a video showing me that. I was like, oh shit, look at that now, sneak Infinity Ward. But I think it's good in a way because that makes it a bit more interesting than just, put like sliders all the way up or all the way down or to left or right. So it's actually a bit more intricate or delicate than that. So yep, there we go. So that's literally my gaming. I don't have so much more to say about it either. But the highlight for this episode, for me at least, talking about something to watch or play, is definitely the Wednesday series. So there you go.
Looking forward to it. So Rog, there's a thing that we usually do right about now. What's that thing called?
Shout out for your podcast.
The podcast this week is called Waveform Podcast, which is also has a YouTube channel. But what can you tell us about Waveform, Rog?
A tech podcast for the gadget lovers and tech heads among us, from the mind of Mark Brownlee, better known as MKBHD. MKBHD has made a name for himself on YouTube, reviewing everything from the new smartphones to cameras to electric cars, pulling from over 10 years of experience covering the tech industry. MKBHD and co-host Andrew Manganiello will keep you informed and entertained as they take a deep dive into the latest and greatest in tech and what deserves your hard-earned cash. New episodes every week. Waveform is part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. That was the longest description I've read.
It was the longest we've ever had on the show. But shout out to MKBHD and Andrew on Wavepoint Podcast. It is. I didn't expect to like this as much as I have, because it's really hard. I'm finding it more and more difficult to get into newer podcasts because of the fact that I've already got what I like. I like it. I don't really want any new podcasts per se. Hence the reason we don't really shout out as many podcasts nowadays. But I love this podcast. And nice. I want to say their last episode that went up, the one that went up before this episode of our podcast airs, the one with Hassan Minhaj really sold me. That's the episode that sold me on this podcast. Listen to that conversation they have with Hassan Minhaj, and I really, really, really recommend you check it out. Even if you're not really going to listen to, become a regular listener of this podcast, I would say this is the one you need to listen to at least, because the conversation they have about tech, AI, the industry, all that kind of stuff, and taking Hassan's perspective as a comedian and a political sort of comedian into it, made such an interesting conversation between him and Marquise, which was amazing. And Andrew as well. Andrew was there. He was talking. But it was mainly between Hassan and Marquise, I think, during that conversation. I think they spoke more on the topics. So with that, Rog, Ooh, there's my alarm going off. How about we get out of here? I've got an appointment.
I know you do. I know you do. Yes, people. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, take care now and have a beautiful continuation of your week. And hopefully, we meet up here next week in that beautiful life. So with that said, my friends, stay healthy and game on. Muffin and out.
Beautiful as always. So as always, guys, you can find this podcast pretty much everywhere. You can find Raj pretty much everywhere at 40 Splish Splash. That's the number 40 with SPLISH, SPLASH. You can find him at Splish and Splash on YouTube, preferably Splish because that's where he's mainly putting up his stuff at this particular point in time. You can find me at LP Garden, it's Garden Out of You, and of course at Simply Binge or Simply Binge UK. And as always, we wouldn't like guys to miss on any of the episodes of That Beautiful Life podcast. Many beautiful people like you subscribe to this podcast on Castbox, Acast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and elsewhere. And what's company gonna like it that we're giving it for free. So as always, guys, this has been queued for your pleasure. It's a wrap. There's the episode.